Why?
Why?
Why? Why did it happen? Why were you lifting so much? Why? Lots of questions, lots of why. As I mentioned before, most people, when they hear about an incident or see an incident occur or happen upon an incident, especially in the workplace, they want to know how it happened or what happened. But us as safety professionals, we're a different sort. We want to know why it happened. In fact, root cause, or discovering the single event or the single thing that caused an incident to occur, is often discovered and sought out by asking why. So let's start down that road of root cause. Hi, my name is Kevin Barrett. I'm a health and safety professional, and I make health and safety related videos here on YouTube. This is the 9th in the Incident Investigation Theory and Practice series, and we're going to deal with and start down that road of root cause. So let's dive in and have a look. Let's just do a quick review and see where we came from and where we are right now. There's a link down in the description for the whole entire playlist for the Incident Investigation Theory and Practice series. And if you're brand new, I suggest you maybe pause this video and go have a look at that right from the start. But just a quick review of where we are. We've worked our way through the incident investigation process, all the way from initial preparedness to investigating the incident scene itself and gathering the data, to preparing a timeline. And timelines are good. They help us to determine the events or the chain of events that occurred and that led up to the incident. And now the challenge is taking all of that stuff we've got and figuring out why it occurred. In the last video, I talked about singular root cause. And absolutely, root cause is the singular event or the singular thing that led up to the chain of events that led up to the incident occurring. But let's maybe clarify a few points. Root cause often looks for a singular, specific underlying cause, right? But the methodology for determining a root cause can reveal some basic causes and/or causal factors, hence the reason they were mentioned in the last video. These also need to be addressed as considered to contributing to the incident overall and need to have corrective actions implemented to prevent future occurrences. So these points are just as important as the root cause. Some additional points to consider when you're pursuing root cause. The steps are as important as the destination. So the route, the journey to get to the root cause is important as arriving at the destination. When you find the root cause, you have to make sure that it reveals a specific underlying cause. It has to be reasonably identified. You have to have the ability to modify what the root cause and alter the cause. In other words, break the chain and the events will no longer occur or they won't occur again. And finally, in doing so, in saying all of this, when you're done, your conclusion has to involve some practical and practicable recommendations and processes for preventive measures. In other words, what you put in place has to eliminate the root cause in an effort to prevent something like this ever occurring again. Now, the important thing is, when we apply all of this, we have to apply it to an incident. So let's have a quick review of our incident that we know at this point. During our investigation, it obviously revealed, just like the picture, the forklift operator lifted too much. That's completely obvious. Now, the detrimental thing would be saying, okay, don't lift that much ever again and it'll never happen again.
Maybe, possibly.
Possibly. But your investigation also revealed that the operator was late coming back from his break and was in a rush. And this was something that was habitual and was never addressed by the supervisor or management. The forklift had a single tire that should have been changed out. All the rest of the tires were good, but a single tire should have been changed out. The onboard scales were found not to be working. The forklift had been moved possibly several times and used by others before the incident occurred. There was no walk around or no checks between operators. When you examine the checklist during your document review, you found that they all looked identical, with the only thing differing was the dates. And you also discovered during your document review there were written procedures in place, but the last revision was 5 years ago. There is no evidence of a sign-off requirement or sign-off being done between the employees, and it doesn't look like there's any certification monitoring because you couldn't find any. There's several different methods for determining root cause, and some are proprietary, and I won't get into those. You can search for them on the internet, but there's some different methods that I'll just quickly review, but won't be examined in depth in this video. One is a failure mode effects analysis. This is used in production environments or product development. And the idea is that during the failure mode and effects analysis, those that are investigating are looking for failure modes at certain points along product development or along production or process lines, and looking for the effects of that failure on the overall process. It can be used for the forklift incident, but it often doesn't take into consideration human reasoning and the human factors involved. So we won't be using it, and I'll leave some links down below. You can look more if you want. The other one is a fault tree analysis. This creates an upside down tree, if you will, where the incident, and then you work your way down with the different branches to look at, say, the foliage of the tree. And the idea is that you examine each branch and the events that led to that branch, which led to the incident. And you want to see if you can break the branch, and breaking that branch, would the incident occur? That's a simplistic explanation for a fault tree analysis. Once again, more details down below if you want to look into it. Would it work well for our incident? It could show some of the events, but once again, it doesn't take into account the human factors and the human reasoning. Which leads me to the next methodology for determining root cause. And this method is the one that we're going to use. It's called the 5 whys. The 5 whys was invented actually by the same Japanese industrialist and inventor that founded Toyota Industries. The 5 whys technique was developed in the 1930s, and it's actually still used lots today. I've used it lots in an incident investigation. A lot of you may have even used a similar method without realizing it. In fact, it's that common, and it's so easy to use to consider the human factors and the human reasoning behind an event. Basically, it's called the 5 whys because you ask why something occurred to drill down to the very basic. And it's not just used in a singular event, it can be used for each of the events that contributed to the final incident. In this case, it would be a good thing to use for the forklift incident, just for the simple fact that we can look at each one of the contributing factors, ask why it occurred, and then drill down, and then use each of those separate points to make a determination as to the root cause. Now, there are pros and cons to using the 5 whys, but let's test it out first and let's have a look at how it applies to our incident. First off, quick recap, having a look at the incident. And now, the whole idea is you're going to start as the investigator with the prime incident or the prime effect. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to ask why so much material was lifted to cause the forklift to tip over. The first question obviously is going to be, why did you lift so much? And you're going to get possibly different answers. In this case, I was in a hurry. I was late coming back. Why were you late coming back? I stayed out in the smoking area too long. Why did you stay out past your break? Well, it was no big deal, and I was talking and having fun, and it's never been an issue. Why has nobody ever spoken to you about this? Well, I don't know. Has anybody ever spoken to you about it? No? Why not? Well, the manager doesn't care as long as we get stuff done. The other workers don't care. Nobody cares. It's important to understand that we could stop right there and say, well, there's just a lack of time management. Management doesn't care about workers' time, and that causes a rush, which causes lifting too much, which caused the incident. But let's look at the other sort of group of events and the other contributing factors and ask why about those as well. You want to get back to why so much was lifted and maybe thinking about the fact that the scales were broken. Why didn't you notice the scales were broken? Well, I did notice the scales were broken. Well, why did you continue to run the machinery when you knew the scales were broken? They've been broken for a while and nobody's cared, and we haven't bothered worrying about it. All we do is just watch what we lift. Okay, so when I looked at the pre-use stuff and the pre-use checklists, I noticed that this showed that the scales were working. Why did you complete your pre-use checklist to show the scales were working? Well, we always do that. All we do is we just write the date and check all the boxes. Yes, nobody cares, nobody examines them, and nobody reviews them. Okay, so when you use this pre-use checklist, why don't you walk around the machine, and why don't other operators walk around the machines when it's used between operators? We don't have to. We've never had to. Nobody cares. Nobody said we had to. Seeing a pattern? Do you have your forklift certification available to you? No. Well, why not? Never needed it. Why haven't you needed it? Been operating a forklift here for 10 years and nobody's ever said I needed one. Well, why do you think there's no need? Because the safe work procedure shows that you need to have a certification. Oh, well, I've never read it. Well, why not? Nobody said I had to. Okay, so we've got to a point, we've asked why regarding the state of the machinery, why he lifted too much, and why there seems to be no attention paid to the safe work processes and the safety thing. So are you seeing kind of a pattern, a collective answer to everything? I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm not even going to answer what the root cause is. I'm going to wait till the next video. But what I want you to do is, using the answers that I got in the questioning methodology, leave some comments below and let me know what you think the root cause is. But in the meantime, let's get down to the pros and cons and why 5 whys is good and why it might not be so good, or what you as an investigator can watch for to make sure that it stays an effective method for determining root cause. The 5 whys is excellent because you can drill down and find the root or roots. In other words, you can look at each one of the contributing factors and ask why that contributing factor was present in the incident chain. It doesn't require statistical analysis or quantification or providing values to any one event, because it looks at the cause and effect of the events. And the next best thing is, it also considers the interaction between human beings and the human reasoning that led up to that event. It provides you an insight, shall we say, to the safety culture a lot of times as well. Now, there are some cons or some drawbacks to using the 5 whys methodology. One of them, of course, is disappearing down a rabbit hole.
Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
As you saw in my first line of questioning, and as I stopped and warned you, I could have just stopped there and said, okay, well, that's it. Nobody manages the employees correctly. And as a result, they're always in a rush and doing what they want to do, and there's no control. So that's why the person lifted so much and the forklift tipped over. Obviously, not the best way to approach it, and certainly inaccurate, but it's a good possibility. So investigators have to look at adapting their questioning depending on the answers they get, and also switching tactics depending on how the line is progressing. It's important. Whoever's asking the questions has to do the preliminary research and have access to the incident data prior to asking the whys. You can't walk in cold. There's some additional thought here to also consider. One of the big points is you have to compile the data first. You can maybe ask some of the whys during your initial interview process. It's important to get all the data collected in place in your timeline so that you can actually write out your questions in advance. You have to be prepared to alter your questions depending on the line of questioning, the answers, and the trends of the answers. You should start by asking all of the whys using the data that you've found for the answers and the incident interviews. Then you can corroborate or supplement your investigation by actually asking the workers involved. More than 5 questions may be necessary. As you saw, I had to ask a few more. Not unusual. The other thing is, don't think that you have to ask why all the time and form your questions into why. You can just simply ask another question that would complement the why. It's also important that each negative answer must be treated as a deficiency, and it needs to be addressed when the report is written, and if not before, if there's unsafe conditions present. Just to summarize everything, don't run away, okay? Don't run away. Write your questions based on the data collected, okay? Collect all your data first and then write your questions. Try answering the questions using the data first, but don't form a predetermined opinion. Use the material that you've got, ask your whys, and then use it to build on the interview questions that you're going to ask to follow up when you do the 5 whys with the workers involved. And on that note, only question the workers involved. Don't use the 5 whys technique with witnesses or anybody else, because what will happen is you'll likely get subjective answers and it could skew your findings. Be prepared with contingency questions to drill down and maybe change your tactic depending on the answers. Don't get caught up in one line of questioning and don't stop. Make sure that you've asked all the questions and observed everything. You also have to understand that more than 5 whys may be needed depending on the questions you're asking. And the final thing, if you're not getting the right answer, consider if you're asking the right questions. Thanks for watching. If you like the video and like the content, do me a favor, let me know. Give me a click, give me a like. Like. Yeah, thank you. If you want to learn more about health and safety, I'm going to leave some additional links on this side for the whole entire playlist for incident investigation theory and practice, and also the 7 Minutes of Safety series. But until we see each other again, do me a favor, lead by example. Think about safety and talk about safety, yes, but do it at home and in the workplace. That way we provoke safety everywhere we are. Until we see each other again, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye for now.